Hello, listeners of the Versations podcast. I am your host, Bri, like the cheese, and I'm so happy to be back. Season 2, it feels good. I have a new microphone, and it's very fun to play with. This is an ASMR podcast. I'm just kidding. It is not. And before we get started, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to my friend Jake Miles. He's got a podcast called the Mountain Movers Podcast. You can grab it on Apple and Spotify. And you might even see a most recent episode with yours truly. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And if you're new here to the Versations podcast, thank you so much for tuning in. Lovely to have you. Each episode, I'm going to feature a new creator, and we'll discuss art in any and all of its forms. It's conversations about art. Just as that. Easy as that. And what better way to start off season 2 than with my good friend, Judy Luo. She's a dancer. She is at Ryerson right now, getting a BFA in performance dance. And she's also a really cool human. I really enjoyed our chat, and I hope you will too. Check it out.
You go there, you stand in first position, you hear that classical music, and you go, oh man, here we go, you know? It's definitely a specific feeling.
Hi, Judy.
Hi, Bri, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Very well. It's almost the end of the semester, so I'm excited.
I know. I can't believe we made it through.
Yeah, 4th year.
It feels like, even though we had dances, like, literally 2 seconds ago, it feels like it was so long ago. But, I mean, what are, like, some things that you, even just a few words that you felt during the whole process of performing 7 nights of a show?
A few words, perhaps a few sentences. I mean, I was really excited. First of all, I think dance is a pretty long process.
Mm-hmm.
It's not so common that you create, you have like 2 to 3 months to create a full piece. So in that way, you know, It's a lengthy process. I mean, there's both benefits and not so much benefits to something like that. So I think I was very excited to just, you know, do it on stage because it feels like we were slightly like hitting some sort of level.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I was also just kind of ready to leave that work or those types of works because of the long process we had. I'm sure if the show run was longer, I would have approached it in a very different way. In that kind of manner. But it was exciting, and I think we both had a lot of room to put ourselves in the work, so every night felt like quite different.
It did,
which was exciting. And it's just, I guess, a little taste of maybe the professional world if you do get to perform a show for that long.
I know, yeah. Right? Like, how lucky are we that we get to have a theater like that at Ryerson that is such a big open space, and have different audiences for 7 shows, 7 or 8, I guess, even.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think it felt like we were hitting a lull around like week 13 or something like that, right? But it's also interesting to find where there's more work to do, and like exactly. I definitely felt that with the Cunningham piece that we did.
I think I actually could have done that piece for much longer. I probably would have hit a point of I hate myself and I hate this technique and this work.
Totally.
And then you would have, you know, broken through that and found something else. But I think because it was so different for us, it was really exciting, and we were really lucky to have Dylan. So
yes, we were.
Yeah.
What a guy.
Yeah.
Dylan Crossman.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Well, now we're done. We're about to finish our assessments today. And going into the break, are you excited to just sort of give yourself a rest time? And
yeah, yes and no. I mean, I think at least for a couple of us, the semester started, you know, a week before it actually started. So even that extra 7 to 10 days that we had rehearsals prior really adds on to how the beginning of the semester feels. And on top of that, because of Fall for Dance, we never had weekends, really.
Yeah.
So for the first month and a half, it was just go, go, go. And then, like, reading week came, and you're like, oh, it's reading week, and I'm so behind. But in that way, it's nice to just finally have a break where I'm not really obligated to do anything. I mean, I'm going to a couple studios to set a couple pieces, but other than that, I'm definitely gonna take some time to myself, spend time with my family, actually see my boyfriend, who I've neglected for this past little while. But I'm also, like, I also really love taking class when I don't have anything to work towards. It's something really enjoyable for me.
Whereabouts do you take class usually?
I love going to Dance Tech. I know that they just moved locations recently, so...
Oh my god, yeah.
I'm excited to see what the new place is like, since we haven't gotten a chance.
So they have a spot, though?
Yes, I think it's like a 5-minute walk from where they used to be.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah,
good.
That's where I mainly go.
Nice.
I pop into GMD every now and then, too. But,
I should do that, too.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's also, I love when we have time to actually go and take class outside of Ryerson, because it just gives you, like, a whole new space to be in, different people to dance with. Like, we're always with our classmates every single time, and not that that's a bad thing. It just sort of starts to become a routine and a pattern, right?
Yeah, exactly.
No, that's really cool that you branch out, and I think also it's important that we, like, try other styles or, like, new teachers too. I mean, I guess, does Robert still teach at Dance Tech?
Not to my knowledge. But I love all the ballet instructors there, or teachers. Yeah.
Have you heard of Christine Wright?
I have taken her class.
Okay.
I took Peggy's intensive this past...
Peggy Baker.
Yes, Peggy Baker's intensive this past summer, and I did all her ballet classes, and she really changed the way I approached ballet coming into the semester. Yeah.
She's cool.
She's awesome.
Yeah.
It's a balance. But I mean, taking class for me is always finding... I think the reason why I enjoy taking class so much is because it's that balance between finding what you need versus what you know you need to improve on, which is, I guess, something I sometimes struggle with being in school.
Yeah.
Having teachers, having someone grade you, it's a slightly different perspective, so you're kind of more in the gear of student, whereas when you take class, you choose how much you want to be quote-unquote a student versus someone like a professional just warming up, for example, or striving to try something new in class that you might be a little bit nervous to do in a school setting. So in that sense, taking class feels very liberating and enjoyable, but definitely frustrating at times too, so it's like a time for yourself, really. And
you went directly from high school to university, right? Yeah, so you've been a student like all of your life, basically.
Yeah. Willingly. I really love learning.
No, for sure. I mean, I have this philosophy that it's like you never stop being a student.
Never. Student of life.
But I mean, like in being a student in an institutional, system where, yes, like you are graded and you have to, in some ways, fit what they want or what the teachers want. Or I think, and you also teach, like giving back to other kids. How do you find the switch from being your own training and focusing on you to being a teacher who can help that person find their training? Where's that line?
Do you mean in terms of like actually being a teacher, or like a teacher for yourself?
Well, exactly, right? Like, where is are we always trying to just be our own student in our own philosophies? And then when you're a teacher, like, how much do you find in other people that you can take into your own practice? Do you know what I mean?
Okay. Well, I think as a teacher, teaching younger students more frequently, I've had some teachers who've been extremely influential, and I've tried to kind of reflect on why that is. So I try and conduct myself in a way that's friendly, because I don't necessarily think that, like, scaring my students brings out the best in them.
Do you have any examples of people that have influenced you?
Yeah, I mean, even at school, like right now, I absolutely adore Vicky and Louie, but mainly because they treat us like adults. You know, they're very demanding, which is also something that I try to be to my students. Especially within studio settings, for example, yes, a lot of them are there for fun, but I see that the time that they're spending there very valuable, and even if they don't plan on dancing, there's so much that we can offer them that's more than just quote unquote fun. Yes, we want to make sure that they have a lot of fun. You know, they're children, they're there to enjoy themselves, but
they're about to grow up with all these philosophies.
Exactly, and especially in today's like society where everything is so demanding in terms of, you know, you have to hit XYZ, and in school you have to get an A, you have to be good at this and this. I think dance can teach you how to be great at many things without the pressure necessarily, just like finding your own way to do things.
Cool.
And how capable of many things you can be. Like, for example, I mean, a lot of kids who come in are not necessarily the most coordinated, but to see that like huge smile on their face when they figure out how to do a pas de bourrée is amazing. And you're like, you can do this, you know? And this is, if you put yourself in the right setting and in the right mindset, like this is a very doable thing. And something as simple as that really drives me to push and find new ways of communication to students. So
isn't it just lovely when they accomplish?
Yes.
Right? Like you give them a goal, you give them a task, and if they're struggling or something goes wrong, you work through it, and then they accomplish it. And it's just like this moment of sharing the joy.
Exactly.
Right? Because it's in some ways you could be like, I'm the teacher, I did all of it. But no, the student, of course, did it as well. So that you can combine your joy together.
Exactly. It's kind of like nurturing what is there already and just finding different ways to bring that out. So
love it.
Yeah, finding different ways to communicate. I think that's the biggest thing for me. Like, whether it be language, like actual words that I'm using that reads to them, or how I carry myself physically. It's been an interesting exploration, definitely.
And going back to sort of what we were talking about, how there isn't, you never stop being a student. There's such a blurred line between teacher and student for yourself. We both grew up doing RAD Ballet syllabus, and I'm wondering what are some things that you've taken from that and really encourage in your own practice, and some things that maybe you've left behind that were more for the examination side of things. Where were those?
I mean, I did. So I grew up in my studio career only doing RAD in terms of ballet, and I had a great teacher, phenomenal. She was life-changing for me. Really, the only reason why I'm dancing today. Her name is Cindy Fisher. Yeah, just gave me the opportunity and really pushed me and never gave up on me. So I give all of my success up until now to her, really.
Cool.
I mean, I think you can say this about anything that has a lot of structure. There are positives to practicing something every day and knowing what the expectation is. And having a syllabus is nice in that someone has sat there and thought about what the progression is from grade 1 or pre-primary to advanced 2 solo seal. It's been planned out in a way. Whether you think it's effective or not is quite subjective, but it's nice knowing that there was someone who put a lot of thought into, at this age, usually they'll fit into this grade for ballet, and we believe that they're capable of accomplishing these things.
An example of that, I guess, would be around grade 4 we start doing free movement, I believe.
Or maybe even grade 2 or 3 actually.
Yeah, maybe it's changed a few years from now, but they've done grade 1, they've done a few years of classical ballet, and then moving them into sort of more free creative movement.
Exactly, and I think that in recent years you've actually changed the syllabus, and I like revisiting and seeing some of the younger grades has definitely gotten a lot harder.
Oh yeah,
which is really interesting. But I think that's a reflection of just how capable kids are nowadays. You know what I mean? They're so quick and
cool.
I mean, what was considered amazing back then, which I mean is still amazing, is like the boundaries have been pushed. You know, so you start them a bit younger, I guess. With me personally, I definitely struggled with, I mean, thinking back now, if I had to do the same exercises for a whole year, I would lose my mind. Like, even in ballet class, when we do the same, like, exercises for 3 weeks instead of 1.5, I'm already like, I get it, let's move on. Like, find something different. I'm so tired. I fall out of this turn every time. Like, we need to reshape this so I can change my perception of a double pirouette finishing an attitude.
Right.
And I think that's something that I really struggled with RAD, because you did the same sort of exercises over and over and over. You started to associate failure with certain steps. But it wasn't necessarily always the step itself. Maybe it was just like the mental block that you faced because you fell out of it every time. Like, I only fall out of it coming out of this turn. So just the way it was patterned into your body, it's like that structure sometimes created like a cycle, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I felt that too, actually. That's
whereas like now you ask me to do something that I really struggled with back then, and it's not a big deal. And it's like not a big deal if you fall out of it, because you're not banking all your success on, I have to hit this to get this in my exam. So in that way, training under a syllabus is really tough.
Right.
And I mean, in every technique, there's like, whether it be Cicchetti or Vaganova, there's its pros and cons. So I sometimes did feel that RAD was a bit limiting in expression, just because I think it has kind of the stereotype of being very proper, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I heard that too.
Yeah, like first position when you grow up is across from your belly button. But then all of a sudden in, you know, your vocational exam, it's like, why is your first position so low? Why do you have your arms so low when you're turning into your what? And you're like, I don't know. So yeah, but I think something that I've learned over the years is like to treat ballet instead of positions, to really treat it as a sensation, and I think that's why I've really grown to love it. Because as restricting as the whole art form is, or like the whole medium of ballets, it is quite freeing if you find a different way to approach it. To try and, I mean, who said this? I think it was maybe Martha Graham or something that said that you need to, like, to become a dancer, you need to like, learn technique, excel at it, and then you break it. So you almost have to have that structure. And then
I don't know she said that. That's really cool.
Yeah, and then finding that way to find freedom within this limiting structure. I mean, that's why you have all these ballet companies in the world. I think the principal dancers and all the soloists and all the core ballet members like have kind of found a way to do the same rep years and years and years after, because there's something that they really enjoy. I mean, there's many reasons why these ballet companies have been around, and there's so many of them. But personally, that's kind of why I love it so much. Ballet as a whole.
Knowing how to break the rules, but you have to learn them first.
Yes, exactly. How to break the rules, how to conform to them in some ways, how to like be clean, do the step, finish it, but then the amount of opportunities that opens up for you once you can do that is so great.
Cool. Yeah. One of the things I love about ballet is that you can, I think out of all of the dance styles, like, it's the one that strengthens you in the right way.
There's nothing like it.
You know?
Ooh, yeah.
Like, if I haven't had a ballet class in a while, I feel like or at least I'm just not warming up the right muscles in some ways. I know, like, obviously we're not supposed to use our quads as much, or like it's supposed to be the glute med and all that, those turnout muscles that are really stabilizing. And I think if you just go to the gym and work on like just parallel, or like you need a balance of and have those turnout muscles to use.
Yeah, it's so demanding because no one walks with their feet turned outwards and
right.
But the hardest thing about ballet is that it's not enough to just have strong muscles. You have to know how to use them when you're moving, but also when not to use them, and how to coordinate them, and just many things. Just the way it's built
yeah.
is challenging, and you're right. There's really nothing like a ballet class to make you remember how hard it is.
Literally after every class, I still take a moment to be like, that was humbling,
Yes.
Wow, it's hard.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, why we love it so much.
Yeah, and because there's a structure within it, there is an idea of what perfection is, and although you can't ever reach it, it's nice to have something to reach towards, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
That guideline.
Yeah. I always feel like a fairy when I do ballet. And I don't mean like that I'm floaty and like not strong. I feel strong, like a strong fairy.
In the same way that I experience like out of body, experiences in like contemporary and everything, same thing with ballet. You go there, you stand in first position, you hear that classical music, and you go, oh man, here we go, It's definitely a specific feeling. Yeah.
Totally.
Yeah.
Amazing. Well, I also wanted to ask you, because I haven't had a chance to, even though we go to school together every day, what you're up to next year. This is our last year. Mm-hmm. And you don't have to answer with a concrete example of things, but just where your head is going. I'm curious.
I don't think I will be here in Toronto.
Okay.
I've grown up here, or ever since I moved to Canada, I've been here my entire life. I still live with my family, who I'm so grateful for. But I think it's time to go. And because this is such a home for me, I don't feel so scared to leave, because I know I can always come back.
Absolutely,
and that is so refreshing and comforting. In terms of where exactly I'll be, only time will tell. I have a couple auditions set up for next semester, and depending
what?
Well,
if you can reveal.
Yes, I'm going to be auditioning for a couple bigger companies like Ballet BC and there too, and whatever else comes up. You can never really put yourself out there enough. Mm-hmm. It's a tough world out there. I'm sure we all know there are more of us that want jobs than there are jobs in terms of a company setting. So it's never harmful to go out and do an extra audition, even if you don't think you're suitable, if you think you're going to get it, just to have that practice. But I'm not really picky as to where I end up, just because I feel so fortunate to be able to call dance a career. Like, you have to be a certain place in life and have certain resources to be even able to do that. And I think you can grow anywhere, really, if you set yourself up. Some places will be much more suitable than others, depending on, what the culture of the company is, what type of work they do, versus, like, what I am and, like, what my instincts are. So, in that way, yes, some places are, quote-unquote, better than others, but I think as someone who's an emerging artist, anywhere, really, I don't have any experience under my belt, so...
That's
to have that opportunity would be amazing.
That's a really good way to look at, like, the transition from student to professional.
Yeah.
There's no, like, job that isn't good enough for you to sustain yourself in, right?
Yes, exactly. And I think even within school, too, as much as it's up to your teachers, it's always down to you, You decide how much you want to take away from something, and you try and shape whatever your environment you're in to facilitate that, so...
That's really, really great. It's good that you have a flexible path.
Yeah.
But at least that you want to get into Toronto.
Yes.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it here. People are kind. My family's great. Mm-hmm. But I can always come back.
Yeah, of course. And everything will be here probably how you left it.
Yes, I gotta say, like, I'm pretty sad to think that I have to leave my boyfriend if that ends up being the case, but I'm sure we'll make it work. But other than that, I don't really have any other worries, which is really comforting, you know?
Good.
I thought by 4th year I would be way more stressed than I am, and yes of course, I'm, you know, always wondering where I'll be, but I've been really lucky in terms of the people I've met and how things have been set up that I feel like I'm in a pretty, you know, settling place to leave. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, I mean, you and Jake are so strong. You'll be fine.
We'll see. Time will tell. He's an awesome guy. So
yeah.
So we'll make it work. That's if you really want to make it work, we'll make it work.
And I mean, as an artist, it kind of does have to be like that complicated some way to have a relationship. I mean,
we're nomads.
Yeah, right? Like, we don't really stay in one spot usually.
Yeah, and that's never something I would have ever imagined growing up. I wouldn't. Yeah, I would say I grew up in a rather conservative family. I mean, I'm an immigrant, so I think my parents, you know, really wanted stability for me. But clearly they created and gave me such opportunity that I could end up here, potentially in a way that they could have never anticipated. But, you know, I'm really only here because of all the sacrifices they made. So
let's just play a quick game for kicks. If you, like, not a race, but if you, like, thought of your life in a completely different way where, like, dance wasn't the path you decided to go into, like, what would be your, like, dream other job?
I mean, it's not even that big of an imagination, if that makes sense. Like, it was very real for me. Up until maybe only grade 12 did I even ponder dance as a career, which is pretty crazy, you know, where I am now and how real it is and how invested I am. I could have never in a million years imagined it. But I really had a passion for sciences, and even now I love learning about the body, so something to do with the body.
Cool.
Ryerson was the only program I had applied to in Toronto, and aside from 2 other dance schools I had applied to, like, I really didn't expect to be here. But I mean, it's hard to say, because even as someone who's very invested in dance, I know I have such a love for the diversity that is offered in the world. Cool. And I grew up playing a lot of sports. I, you know, played piano. I took art class. Like, I mean, I wasn't a very great visual artist, nor was I a great swimmer, although I did lessons in both. I was pretty awful.
Many skills, many talents.
Yeah, I think the reason why I loved things so much growing up is because I saw how different they were from other things and how much each thing could offer me. Like, I loved playing sports because of the community aspect and being with a team and exerting that force from your body and seeing in the same way that dance accomplishes crazy things.
Yeah.
Like, sports and athletics do the same exact thing, which is why I have such a huge amount of respect for athletes and people who put themselves out there to be challenged by, you know, this very physical, tangible thing that we call our bodies. I also, like, I love learning. I'm, you know, hoping to get a minor, hopefully, if this all works out, in economics. I never learned anything business coming into university, but I was like, you know what? I'm in a place where I'm here to learn. Why not learn something brand new? But yeah, if it was a specific career path, I think probably within the science scope. I know that's still pretty broad. Something to do with the body. I don't know if I could have been a doctor. You know, if we're, like, talking specific jobs, I was almost a little bit too smart for my own good when I was younger, in the sense that I was like, okay, I know that if I studied this much, I could probably get a 90. And that is good enough because it's still a 90.
Playing the system a bit.
Exactly. I was a little bit quirky in that way growing up, but never like some of my friends who were so passionate about, like, you know, how can I get a 99? How do I get 100? I was never necessarily like that. So just how can I do enough to do well and still well, but yeah.
No, you want to, like you say, like, do as best as you can, and I think having respect for athletes, I definitely feel that too. It's like dance is like the perfect combination of like artist and athlete. Right? Like
exactly.
We go back and forth so much because we have to take care of our bodies and we have to like you say, do the physical exertion. But then there's all this like emotional and philosophical exploration that's happening.
The very human aspect of
exactly.
being human, aside from like the physical and like biological of what is a human, like the other aspects. So dance really, combines both of what is it to be a human? Like
totally,
both mentally and physically.
We were just having a conversation before we started recording about what is the artist's role in society, how to give back. Like being a doctor is very concretely, you're going to help people heal.
Yeah.
What would you say, and this could change tomorrow, like what's your responsibility as an artist towards the social justice or the political things that happen in our community?
Yeah, it's funny. Like this is actually something I personally struggle with a lot. I don't doubt that art has an immense place in society. We need it. It's the most physical way of expressing what we feel, if that makes sense. And it's something that everyone can do.
Yes.
And I guess you could say it's like a reflection of the things we value, of of our purpose of being like here, of living.
Yeah. To take art out of the world would
we would just be robots. You know what I mean?
Yes.
In that way, like there would be nothing that would separate us from just a piece of metal doing the things that we do, making the earth run.
It would be a pretty sad world.
Yeah.
It really would be.
Yeah. But in terms of me personally as an artist, yes, I think that we all have the capacity to touch people's lives and provide a different perspective for them to view things, or maybe even challenge them to think differently, to be a catalyst to different ways of thinking or new ideas that may not be necessarily accessible through a textbook, for let's say,
I agree.
So whatever medium that may be, that I think that's our job as artists, to keep the gears going and make people think critically, really. But in terms of I guess through art specifically and being an artist, the reason why I struggle with it is, in some ways for me, and I know not everyone may feel this way, but it's just, I think maybe in terms of the stage of life I'm in right now and like evaluating, what our future is going to be in this big time of change. Sometimes, like, I guess art feels really, like being an artist feels really selfish because at all times I'm always asking for things. Asking for funding for art. You know what I mean? Like it's not like I'm asking for money to find a cure for cancer. Like it's very different in that we said that the purpose of art is very different. So yes, putting on a show, there's going to be some sort of impact on society then. But in terms of like me very personally, it just feels like I'm always asking, and it's for me to fulfill what I want. So it's definitely been challenging, and I've even been like pondering of, I for sure, I think, want to work for a company for at least a couple years. But even then, like, I think, like, what will, like, being in a company, like, what is my role and how am I giving back to society? Like, this is just, like, kind of another form of employment. It's almost, in a way, another 9 to 5. Like, within a company, you don't necessarily have as much voice. Like, you're a vessel for other choreographers, so hopefully you'll be in a space where you feel like the work that you're doing is challenging how people think as well. And, furthering what we are as humans.
Like, you'd be a part of the greater picture that the company wants.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But then in terms of, like, an everyday basis, I mean, it's tough. I'm like, am I gonna fall into a cycle of, this is my job, this is what I love to do, and that's it? I mean, maybe that is our purpose, and that we all hope to one day find something that we can just dedicate our lives to. But just thinking about, you know, with all of the issues, this is kind of just me. I'm sometimes a big thinker, as you could say.
Oh, you are the biggest thinker I know. That's for sure.
But just thinking about like huge things that are wrong with the world, like how the heck am I going to be a part in helping and trying to solve those things, if that makes sense. No, I don't plan on being the sole person.
Well, I was just to say,
find a way to solve poverty.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It would be a lot to ask you
yes.
in the profession of art to
Yes.
be like, solve cancer, solve poverty.
But I think every
lot.
career can have a way of helping that. So I think I'm in a place of how am I going to shape myself to be able to always be a vessel for other people. Because I think at the end of the day, we can be better as humans if it's not for us and if it's for others.
Very altruistic and selfless.
And I think part of me is also in this because I know there's always a balance in the world. There's good and there's bad. There's white and there's black in terms of, you know, like as much as we want to be helpful, we'll always be selfish. So it's kind of finding that balance.
Yeah.
And as much as I do for myself, I need to remember that it's so much more than me, you know? So I think that's kind of where I am, to stay true to that as artists, to remember. I mean, you could say that with any profession again. Like, it's more than us. Like, how are you going to use this specific thing and make it bigger than that? Yeah.
Having an audience in front of you, I think, helps to let go of the selfishness of it, I think, maybe.
Yes.
Because you finally, in the process of creating, it's all you and the company or you and the artist or whatever. But when you're on stage or when you're in front of an audience, you finally get to share. And you finally get to have that exchange of communication and, like,
connection.
Like you say, like, answering questions about the world and critical thinking. So, yeah, I definitely agree with you that it can be very selfish to be an artist. But in ways, and in some ways, that is our job, to understand ourselves.
Yes.
So that we can
help others find ways to understand them.
Yeah.
And I say that with a grain of salt, too, because I know a lot of artists who go through this tough career that is not very forgiving or doesn't really give back in any way, do it out of a place of selflessness, if that makes sense. Because if we were truly trying to be selfish and taking things for ourselves, we would have not chosen this career.
Yeah.
So in that way, kudos to the art community, man. It's not easy.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for sitting with me.
No worries.
I really, really
so
appreciate
awesome,
it.
Bri.
I love you very much.
I love you too. Excited to see what comes up.
Yeah, for you too. Hopefully our paths will cross again.
Yes, I
this
don't
lifetime.
doubt it. Oh my gosh. I do not doubt that. Yes.
Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you so much for listening to the Art Versations podcast. If you like what you heard, subscribe, rate, and leave a review to help the podcast grow. As well, follow the podcast on Instagram at ArtVersationsPod. That's ArtVersationsPod. You'll find photos of each of my guests so you can match a voice to a face. Let's keep the conversation going. DM me with your own thoughts about art, as I would love to hear them. I'm always up for a good old-fashioned chat. Till next time.